Before ACLU came along, the Bill of Rights was on paper. There was nobody who was really defending those things.
The ACLU is more important than it's probably ever been, to tell you the truth. It started in 1919 when they were having the Palmer raids. They were doing it by warrantless searches of immigrants. And here we are in 2025, where the Supreme Court says there is no longer needs to be probable cause to arrest someone who's walking down the street, but can be profiled based upon the color of their skin or their appearance. And 5 years ago, I never would have said history like that would ever repeat itself. But the very conditions that gave rise to the original birth of the ACLU seem to have reared their ugly head again.
In this era of the Trump administration, we are really a bulwark against all the bad things that are happening to immigrants, to people of color in general, to regular white-bread citizens, everybody who cares about their rights, their First Amendment rights, their Fourth Amendment rights, reproductive rights. So many things have been stripped away from us in the last 8 months by now. It's a frightening time. So it's really important to support an organization that's the #1 organization really to work on the whole breadth of issues that are being tested in America today.
We are on lands that have been stewarded for generations by Native Hawaiians, and we are so lucky to call Hawaii home. The ACLU supports and recognizes Native Hawaiians as a unique indigenous people who have never relinquished their sovereignty or settled their claims with the United States. We are lucky to be able to do this work after 60 years, standing on the shoulders of civil rights giants who came before us. The ACLU of Hawaii has always punched above its weight.
The organization didn't have very much money in the early days, and we had some really funky offices. There was one that was on Baratania Street, and there were such bad leaks in the ceiling that every night when the staff left, they'd have to cover the typewriters, the early computers. They'd have to cover all the equipment every night with plastic, which has changed, thank God, and now we don't ever receive any government money, so it's always from private donations.
When I first joined the ACLU of Hawaii, it was a very small organization. We had more than 1,000 members, but in terms of the board, we had almost no budget. We had to rely on volunteer attorneys. We had no staff attorney. In fact, when I first joined, we didn't even have a full-time staff. We had a couple volunteers and a part-time executive director. What we have done for the ACLU and through it for the state of Hawaii is really quite remarkable for an organization which, even as we've grown, is still a very small organization. I can remember, for example, that we played a major role in advancing a woman's right to choose in Hawaii. We had all sorts of First Amendment cases, the right to protest, the right to be on the streets and make your views known, even if they aren't popular views. Probably the single most time-consuming and important issue we ever worked on was the Spear case. What we did was essentially talk the courts into taking over the prison system in Hawaii and improving what was the conditions under which prisoners were kept.
And I think the two biggest moments for me, or the biggest cases, one would have been the Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility, and we sued about the conditions of confinement for children who were perceived to be LGBT. At the time, it was the first case in the country to challenge those conditions, and it was a absolutely heart-wrenching, terrible case with the way that these children were treated. The abuse, the harassment, the discrimination, I mean, and it was more than just physical abuse, it was mental abuse. These children were really, really tortured. Ultimately, we prevailed on a preliminary injunction, got a beautiful written opinion from Judge Seabright, and we were able to revamp all of the different policies and procedures out there. And then the second thing that I'm most proud about, which was not a case, it was the marriage equality movement. And really, in 2013, going to special session and getting marriage equality passed and all of the lobbying that was associated with that, and educating all of our community partners and all of the legislatures and people in the community to really come together and to get that done during special session was probably the highlight of my career.
I heard about the ACLU before, etc., but I didn't know much about it until I was contacted by Vanessa Chong, who was the executive director, because of 9/11 that happened, and I see what was happening to immigrant communities, especially from Arab or Muslim countries. That made me more agreeable to become part of the ACLU to defend the First Amendment for everyone. One of the most important things that I'm proud about recently in terms of the ACLU affiliate here is that the affiliate has passed a ceasefire resolution.
Recently, we've done an enormous amount of work in smart justice. The whole bail reform issue is such that rich people get justice, but poor people end up sitting in jail before they're even charged, let alone waiting for trial. So we've been working tirelessly to try to reform that so that there is true justice in the justice system.
The American system of government is not just the rule of the majority. It is the rule of majority with respect for the rights of the minority.
It's interesting that people think of us as being radical or left-leaning when what we're doing is defending a 238-year-old document. I think that's pretty conservative.
More and more people have come to realize how important we are and how unique we are in protecting their civil liberties and their civil rights and those of the people around them. We have probably the strongest organization maybe that we've ever had. We have, if I do say so myself, a great board of directors and more people coming on very shortly.
If you look at the board of directors of ACLU, you will not see a more dedicated group of people. They're very committed and people join that board and they show up and they come and they work, and that's not true of all volunteer board of directors, and we are all volunteers.
Now we've come to a position of strength. We have a very strong, newish executive director.
The new executive director, new meaning like 1 year and this is the second, is just a dynamo, you know, and she pushed and pulled actually the organization to a higher level right now.
Seeing Salma and what she's doing with the affiliate, I think is great. I mean, Wookie is such an incredible legal mind and what a great legal director. Mandy Fernandez is policy director, one of the smartest people I've ever met. And you have Tracy, who's just been the backbone of the affiliate for so long. It's so nice to see kind of this great mix of people here and the work that they're doing.
It's in the gut and the soul of the organization itself that we are fighters, we are scrappy, we will pivot, we will rise to the occasion in the moment that we're in. And sometimes we're even at the forefront. We think of things and think outside of the box so that we get to places and decisions well before a lot of people even think about that it could have been a solution.
It's very exciting to work for an organization that is so well respected and feared in some quarters. At the legislature, if you say you're from ACLU, people really sit up and listen because they know that we have the clout to affect change and to change the laws.
The majority of the work that the ACLU does is actually behind the scenes. It's not something that gathers a lot of press. It's not something that, you know, there are lots of people in the know about it, but you get phone calls and you make calls to legislators or to people in the government or to other people, and you resolve these things informally. And quite often you're able to resolve these things on behalf of dozens and dozens of people without ever going to a lawsuit. And that ultimately is really one of the goals of the ACLU. Litigation should be a last resort. We don't ever want to have to get there because you have limited resources and you're trying to get the most relief to the most number of people as often as possible. So to the extent that people think that the ACLU only has 3 cases this year, that doesn't deal with the dozens or scores of issues that they're dealing with behind the scenes and actually bringing a lot of value. We don't take cases or issues that affect just one person. They stand to affect lots of people. So if one person comes to you with an issue at a high school and that is resolved, it's resolved for everybody at that high school, if not all of the high schools when you go through the Department of Education.
I don't think people understand that the ACLU is there for them, that they're affected every day by something we did. They just don't realize it.
People don't think that their voices are important. I mean, when you're talking about communicating with legislators or with other elected officials, but it's not true, particularly here in Hawaii, where it's such a small community and a small number of phone calls or letters or emails or sign waving at the side of the road can really make such a huge difference. And so I really, especially here for Hawaii, just encourage people to get involved, to stay involved, because it really does make a difference.
We have the benefit of living in quite an extraordinary place with regard to a general spirit and understanding, a compassion for each other. And that is, to me, the basis of how we recognize the protection of people with whom we disagree and their rights.
Right now, during this time of immense threat against our civil liberties, the ACLU of Hawaii is doubling down, and we are building state veils to protect ourselves and our residents from federal encroachment upon their civil rights. We are also using every tool in our toolkit to ensure that you are safe and free and you get to express yourself how you want to express yourself. That means that we are fighting in the courts, we are fighting in the legislature, and we are fighting in the community, in the streets. We have 3 main programmatic elements, which includes our policy wing, our litigation wing, and our community engagement wing. Today's 60th event is all about community engagement and ensuring that you feel a sense of joy and pride in this work because you are part of our mission. At the ACLU of Hawaii, we are public servants, we are community leaders, we support you, we support Kapuna, we support our keiki, and we're so happy to be in community with you today. Mahalo.